Hey everybody, welcome back to Backtrekking, the podcast where we look back at the real-world inspirations behind classic episodes of Star Trek. I'm one of your hosts, Caliban, and talking about Star Trek for me is just as easy as riding a stuffed horse. I'm joined in this episode by my co-host.
I'm Gooey Fame, and I'm pretty good with most of the amendments. I'd keep them.
We have returned to explore the stories behind your favorite Trek shows, and today we are looking at one of Star Trek Deep Space Nine's most unique episodes and the classic film that inspired its creation. It's 1960's Ocean 11 and the DS9 episode Badda-Bing, Badda-Bang.
Yep, good one here. Pretty solid here.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that. Thoughts aplenty, thoughts abound about both of these entries. But yeah, I think they are definitely good topics of discussion. Let's discuss first, though, the news. And honestly, there's not really much more news other than we went to Mission Chicago. And we're now safely back home. What'd you think about your first Star Trek convention?
Oh, it was pretty fun. Yeah. Most of the panels I went to were just like the ones of the stars talking about stuff, which was really interesting. And it was interesting to see then, like, a week later, like, news stories in my feed. And I'm like, oh, I saw them say that live.
Right. Right.
I don't know what took so long to get the quotes out there, and it was a good time. I did. We got to get in on. One of my friends had a meet and greet photo op with Nana Visitor, and that's not something I would normally like pay for or whatever, but I was like, sure, yeah, that was nice of them to let us get in on it, and so that was fun, and yeah, I had a pretty good time.
Yeah, one of the things that that I kind of appreciated was getting to see some kind of exclusive stuff. Like we didn't, they had made some announcements before the con, and then we wondered if there would be big announcements at the con. And there wasn't necessarily like huge announcements unless you consider a Star Trek Prodigy game made by a video game company that made like a couple Ben 10 games as being like a huge announcement.
Yeah.
But we did get to see a live screening of the newly remastered motion picture, which was great.
That was
and we
awesome.
got to see some scenes of some like exclusive scenes of Prodigy and like an exclusive scene of Strange New Worlds, which I thought was pretty cool, and a lot of costumes and set pieces and art from Strange New Worlds as well, which people are getting pretty excited about. It's coming out in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that was cool, and it was fun to see. Just certain people are so great to see speaking and stuff like that, and getting a lot of tidbits, and I got way more into it than I thought I would even get into it, There has been actually an announcement of some episode titles for Strange New Worlds, at least the first 5 or so. I saw some of those, yeah.
Yeah, it's 5 episodes. The first episode's called Strange New Worlds. Makes sense.
Oh.
The second episode is called Children of the Comet. The third episode is called Ghosts of Illyria. After that, there is Memento Mori in episode 4, and episode 5, Spock Amok. And there is key art and photos from some of these episodes, and they look pretty crazy. Spock Amok looks like them trying to do Amok time.
Yeah,
again.
That's what I'm hesitant, but they did announce that they were going to be more episodic at the con, and I was like, that piques my interest because that's the kind of stuff I like, but I'm worried it's just going to be too much of like, this is just like the original series,
Right. Yeah.
We'll see.
I don't know if, like movies have a lot of money, so movies can do things like do fake trailers or gin up screenshots, like the famous one in Infinity War where the Hulk is there and a bunch of characters that like aren't actually in the movie are all part of this battle. I don't think they have the money for that on TV, but who knows? In one of these screenshots, the Amok Spock one, or Spock Amok, he is fighting in the arena in Akuna Caliphate, and it looks like he's fighting himself. It looks like it looks like the actor playing Spock is fighting the actor playing Spock. So I don't know if they're just messing with us or if this is like some kind of hallucination or something that he's having. But a wealth of information to be had, which I guess wasn't ready just 7 or 8 days ago.
Yeah, that would have been cool to have. But I guess they had the scenes and stuff like that, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, I was pretty happy with the con overall. A little bit smaller of a con, but I mean, like even if you were at a bigger con, you would just be getting just more of that, basically more vendors, more booths and exhibits, more stars to get your picture taken with, or not, as your preference may run. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty good time.
Yeah, it was a good first one for me. I liked that it wasn't like crazy big or anything. It was perfect for me.
And great staff too at the convention center that we were at in McCormick Place. Did a really good job keeping things running. The con staff, fine.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to throw Reed Pop under the bus. They certainly do a lot of these things. I won't say that they're the best in the business, but yeah, they were okay. But a lot of appreciation for just the workers at the show. Who, at this point, like, if you're somebody who was just sort of like making paninis for people, or just cleaning things up around the convention center, you've seen everything at this point, right? Because like this week it's a guy in Spock ears, it's a Star Trek thing. Next week it's like SantaCon. Or something like that. The week after, it's the Association of Lighting Constructors or something like that. So it's like every week it's going to be somebody different. You've just kind of seen it all.
Yeah, probably not phased by, the millionth cosplayer you've seen or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. Like you have, yeah, it's like you work on the New York subway. Like you've seen everything at this point.
Sure. So yeah.
The first couple, chain metal bikinis that come by, you're like, okay. But at this point it's like, yeah, mustard or no mustard. Yeah.
Some weirdos again.
You have to like Star Trek fans because they tend to get along pretty well, just at the show. Whenever I would sit down somewhere, somebody that I didn't even know would usually be like, "Oh, where are you from?" And you're enjoying your lunch. What are you looking at seeing later in the day? And found some good conversational partners.
Yeah. People were just would engage you in conversation right away. I was like, "Oh, that's nice," and they're in a friendly way. It wasn't ever like, "Leave me alone,"
Yeah. Maybe people are from the Midwest, maybe not. I'm from Minnesota. We don't do that here, but I know how to do it when other people do it. So had really enjoyed myself, and I also enjoyed getting to see some of the people that spoke. William Shatner, of course. I don't think I'd ever seen George Takei live. I can't really remember, but I enjoyed seeing George Takei, and I'd never seen Kate Mulgrew live, and I enjoyed.
Seeing her. She was the highlight for me.
Yeah.
She was such a she's such a good kind of showman, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every question she made, she's so I guess grandiose, you know what I mean? A big personality.
Yes.
And she was just a delight.
And somebody like William Shatner, he has been doing this longer than he ever did Star Trek or maybe even T.J. Hooker or something else.
Oh yeah.
And so it's kind of his job now to do this. And she's somebody who, sure, she was on Voyager, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, but probably doesn't have quite as much experience. But she is such a professional as a person who has been an actress since she was a teenager and has, represented herself and, presented to people that, she's just a natural when she does it. So, I would recommend definitely seeing her if you get a chance at a future Star Trek convention.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, speaking of movie stars and Hollywood, the story of Hollywood is often one of fame by association, and movie stars, much like their heavenly counterparts, often draw other bodies into their gravity. Before the Brat Pack, or the Frat Pack, or even Brett Ratner's Rat Pack Entertainment, was the original Holmby Hills Rat Pack, so named for the home of Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall and the loose group of entertainers and acquaintances who frequented their North Hollywood home. A-list names like Frank Sinatra, Errol Flynn, David Niven, Nat King Cole, Shirley MacLaine, Cary Grant, Mickey Rooney, and Rex Harrison. When Bogart passed away in 1957, Frank Sinatra became Bacall's fiancé and de facto head of the Rat Pack as the 60s dawned, and the pack itself evolved into a promotional machine for the singing and performing careers of its now 5 main members: Sinatra, Dean Martin, Joey Bishop, Peter Lawford, and Sammy Davis Jr. The burgeoning resort town of Las Vegas became their home as they partied with actors and presidents, showed up unannounced at each other's gigs, and generally epitomized the peak of middle-aged cool in the 1960s. They also made movies when they remembered to. Films like Some Came Running, Four for Texas, and Robin and the Seven Hoods, but none ever quite reached the height of their first official film that captures like a snapshot the Las Vegas of the early 60s. That film was Ocean's 11.
20, 19, 18, 17,
16, 15, 14, 13.
12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
I appreciate the lore backstory here to the Rat Pack. I didn't know this about them.
Like the idea of the Rat Pack has become one of those things that is so ingrained, I think, in American culture of entertainment. But it's also one of those things that is it like rings on a tree, or do rings on a tree grow out, right? And then eventually they become bark or something and fall off. I feel like a lot of the culture of classic Hollywood, is being kept alive by somebody, by certain cable channels maybe, but it's kind of fading out of public consciousness. I think if you tried to quiz people, on who like the '60s Rat Pack members are, they're going to get Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra, maybe Dean Martin, but that's pretty much it.
That's it. Yeah, for me, that's it. There's like parts in the movie where you can tell like a shot is framed to be like a cool poster of like all of them, like 4 or 5 of them. But I'm like, I don't know who this 4th or 5th guy is. I definitely don't know that stuff.
Yeah, and even the people who were heavily inspired by them and then went on to sort of create worlds and notoriety of their own, like filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino, you just remember people walking, down in a parking lot and it's Reservoir Dogs, and not
right.
like the ending of Ocean's 11 that clearly inspired it.
Oh, for sure.
And it is Ocean's 11, the numeral 11. I think Soderbergh, with his remake, self-consciously titled his Ocean's 11, the word, to sort of differentiate it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
At least in the branding, it's Ocean's 11.
When I did have when I was like looking for the films, I was like, which is it? I was like
That'll
struggling.
help you. Yeah, for anybody who wants to watch it, the SEO will help you. Yeah, if you use the numeral.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
He was thinking of SEO even like before the internet
the early
was
2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, this is really like the first big Rat Pack do. I mean, they had been around at this time. Vegas is founded in the mid to late 40s and is growing throughout the 50s. And I think a big part of what we think of as classic Vegas, comes from Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, Sammy Davis
sure.
Jr., making their homes there and entertaining there. And so what better way to sort of canonize that than to make a heist movie centered in and set in Las Vegas. And from what I understand, and I looked all over, I don't think Vegas paid for this. Like the Vegas Tourism Board didn't pay for it. None of the casinos paid for it. It just came from an idea that apparently one of the Rat Pack, I think Peter Lawford, just heard a story from a busboy about like an idea for hitting all 5 major casinos at once, and he's like, "That's pretty good, Frank. What do you think about this?" And Frank's like, "Let's do it. Let's make this movie. We're gonna make this movie."
It does. The movie has that energy too. It like feels like watching guys going like, "Yeah, we're making a movie."
Yeah. It was written by Harry Brown and Charles Lederer, who were screenwriters, but not screenwriters in this case who worried too much about like a plot or just like the structure of the movie or having it sort of move along at a certain pace. I've heard it described as kind of a hangout movie. And I think for film goers in 1960, definitely people who are fans of, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, or Sammy Davis Jr., or even like some of the other stars like Cesar Romero or Richard Connie.
Oh, yeah.
Just going and it's like, I just want to go and watch this movie. Soderbergh wants to make sure, we'll try not to talk about the Soderbergh movie too much because it doesn't relate to our DS9 episode, but Soderbergh makes this movie and he's like, no, here's the heist. It's going to go off bit like that. We're going to have the acrobat guy, and Scott Conn is here for some reason with Casey Affleck, and everybody's going to have their own little role and thing to do. And then we got to track Danny trying to get his ex-wife back. And this movie's like, they're just going to like hang out and like shoot the shit and talk about like repealing, the amendment that lets women vote.
Insane line.
I know.
You're right. It is more of a hangout. Yeah, there is more of like in the remake a sort of like we want to like set up all these. They do that in the original, like setting up the characters and stuff too. But maybe just for it might just be me like, oh, I'm more familiar with who like Don Cheadle is or whatever compared to but it does make them a little bit more distinct, whereas in the original it feels more like you sort of come to it like in this group of guys, and it is about like them hanging out, being cool, singing songs, and I love a musical number in a song or in a movie, so like I was okay with that. I was just like, I'm a little less familiar with all the dudes, but I was like, I'll watch a Dean Martin song or a Sammy Davis Jr. song.
There are less than you would think for having a film packed with singer, actor, entertainers.
Frank didn't even do a song, right?
No.
I was like, what the hell?
You think that, I mean, I guess they didn't want to make it like a full-on Elvis musical, but it's all kind of, the only inorganic one is Josh like singing to. Do the trash guys really get together at night and then they regale each other with songs and
that was fun. I like,
but it was cool though, yeah. But like Dean is like, part of his job is he's planted at the casino entertaining people, and that's how he keeps an eye on things. So that kind of makes sense.
That fits really well, yeah.
Yeah, it fits so well that I was thinking about, no, wait a minute. If you're going to make this movie, which was shot in like 58, 59, comes out in 60, how do you do a movie about Vegas in the 60s when Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack are in the movie and they don't exist in the universe of 1960? And the answer is Red Skelton, I guess. The answer is Danny Thomas tops the bill. Like, they are like... you needed like a Schmeck Fernatra or something like that. You needed somebody to like sort of fill the gap of the Rat Pack in Vegas at the time.
Well, it's like they sort of do exist, right? Because he did perform.
That's true. Yeah, in the side lounge, it seemed like. Yeah.
I feel like it sort of worked in the reality of it a little bit.
Yeah.
There was some stuff like that. Sort of in the remake, there was like nods and stuff too to like their real life counterparts. So I was sort of like, okay,
you think that's what it is? You think that like that? I think it's the second one, right? Where like Julia Roberts is in the film. Do you think that like Soderbergh is
I haven't seen that one, but
okay,
McKenna did tell me about that.
Yeah,
but I think in the first one there was even some like a couple like little nods to like. Them. I think someone says, "Oh, it's when they're at the like game with Topher Grace and stuff," and they have a line when someone's coming in and they're like, I think to George Clooney, and they're like, "Oh yeah, switching from television to movies, like that must be interesting or something."
Okay, all right, okay, so interesting. Now. Oh, God, it makes me hate those movies even more. But that makes sense, though. That does make sense. I'm sure that there is more stuff like that in here. We just don't get it because we're not living in 1960 right now. I got some of it, like when Shirley MacLaine's in it, and she tells Dean Martin that she wishes he was Ricky Nelson. I'm like, Rio Bravo,
right?
I got you there. Yeah,
I had to look up who that was. I was like, okay. Oh yeah, okay.
And speaking of which, I've been thinking about just watching this and seeing faces go by. I was thinking, oh my God, so this is a pretty good candidate, but there must be a film out there. Maybe we'll find it someday that is the perfect like Avengers of Trek stars that have appeared on our show in the various things that we watch. And I had the idea when I was watching, don't ask why, It's not important. But I was watching episodes of Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction.
Nice.
On Plex or Roku or something. Gooey, I don't know if you know this. And maybe, being the generation that you are, this is not a surprise to you. But do you know that we've reinvented flipping through channels on TV?
Oh, yeah,
when I was a kid,
I do it on Plex, for sure.
You just flip through channels, right? Then I don't think I've watched like broadcast TV or channel-based TV in 25 years because everything is either streaming or on the internet. But somehow, some dastardly, entertainment executive has like said, wait a minute, we can invent TV that is just on, and you'll come in the middle of a show and you'll go, oh, I remember this one. Why did we want that back? That exists now. That's what I do with my Roku. I just flip through channels. I thought I'd escape that life.
No, I'm a fan because sometimes I'm like, okay, I gotta fold my laundry and I just want to turn something on. And
yeah, but that's what podcasts are for, right?
I like to look at something, and
hey, I like to look.
Sometimes
Bada-Bing, Badda-Boom.
Oh, Badda-Bing. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to commit to like one of my current shows I'm watching because I want to be invested, but I want to look at the TV, so I'll just turn on whatever. I'll be like, Pluto TV's got a channel that they're always playing a Bond movie. So I'll just put on I'll watch like 15 minutes of a Bond movie. And
I could see that. Well, I mean, I used to do that. Yeah. But I just didn't think that it's like if somebody got out, like typewriters, and they're like, no, we're going to use this now. It's like, what are you talking about? I got an iPhone.
That's everything now though. There's, like, I got to admit, I'm nostalgic about like watching a movie on Comedy Central,
Yeah, okay, I can see. Yeah, watching PCU like back in the day.
Yeah.
Well, let me close this tangent on my tangent and just say that I was watching Beyond Belief, and that's actually a bad choice for flipping through because how they hook you is you have to watch till the end to see, if it was true or not.
If they made it all up.
You kind of have to watch the whole thing, door to door. But I was watching it, and there was an episode. I actually did every year on Enterprising Individuals, except this year because it's just a different year. We do an April Fool's show, and a couple years ago we did an April Fool's show where I did a podcast that was a game show about Beyond Belief.
Oh, that's awesome!
And I just picked a random episode. I think I literally rolled the dice, but I saw an episode the other night that had both John Billingsley, the actor behind Phlox. And also had Michelle Hurd, the actress that plays Raffi on Star Trek Picard. And so it's like, that was a twofer right there. And so we could have talked about that like on the show, but then I thought about it and I thought, this is a show that's being made in like the mid-90s in Hollywood. There's going to be a ton of Star Trek actors. So there must be like a perfect axis of Star Trek stars that appear in like six actors in one episode of Beyond Belief. Just fun fact, I started watching the next one, and the first Beyond Belief sketch had Terry Funk in it.
Whoa, the Funker.
He played a wrestler who killed somebody during a match, but he kept wrestling.
He has a phenomenal career in entertainment outside of wrestling.
His film career?
Yeah. Love him.
So there's some movie somewhere that would do that for us, and until we find it, it's this one, because it's got Frank Sinatra, who of course we've talked about in The Manchurian Candidate. It's got Dean Martin, who we talked about in Rio Bravo. It's got Henry Silva, who was also in The Manchurian Candidate.
Yes, he's also in Above the Law. He's the villain in the cigar movie Above the Law. Just thought you might want to know that.
Yeah. Someday we'll connect Above the Law to some Trek episode.
Yes.
Of course, we have to mention Angie Dickinson, of course, who is in Rio Bravo as well. So
this is it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty good so far. There's got to be something out there that really brings them all in.
Watch an episode of Gargoyles.
Oh yeah,
that's cheating.
That would certainly do it. Yeah.
I will say, like the idea of who exists in the real world and like that stuff in both the original and the remake, it kind of fits with the tone of the movie, which is like, it's a little free flowing, carefree, like, we're not really like too worried about it, and both the movies are very like, Well, except for this one gets kind of heavy in a couple moments, but otherwise it's like, yeah, who cares? We're hanging out. We're making a movie. We're smoking. We're playing pool. We're singing, you know?
Yeah, I don't think that Soderbergh would have let one of the 11 just die and then we all just go on with our lives, right?
I was like, that's not going to happen, right? Like that.
No.
It seems too heavy for this lighthearted movie.
To the point where, I guess I know more about these movies than I really want to. In 12, it's 12, right? Where they put the job together in 12 and they're talking about it. And Carl Reiner, who at that point was, like in his early 80s, he's very old. Mm-hmm. He just goes, boys, I'm too old for this. And he just walks out of the movie. So it's kind of like 12, but it's really just 11 because he just bails on the movie because he's too old to do it. Which makes sense. But yeah, having 11, that's a long way to split your take. I know it's a lot of money, but 11 ways, geez.
And this one, the guy dies, and there's like a scene where he's talking to his son that he hasn't seen.
Right? Yeah.
It's like, dang, like,
and they're
chill out.
Yeah, and then Cesar Romero is trying to he's trying to sort of extort them for the money, and they bury the money with the guy, and the morality, and then of course he's cremated. Womp womp. The morality of the movie escapes me because there is. We have a thing in America where we have a tradition of gangster films, right? If you watch I was talking about this on another, doing all the commercials for all my podcasts.
Good.
On Sailor Noob recently, our anime podcast. And I was talking about Japanese film and how there aren't a lot of like Yakuza films. If you see like the Yakuza in a film, it's often like a Western film because the Japanese, and I don't want to paint them all with the same brush, but I'm just saying culturally, there's a different view of like the mob, and like it's like too antisocial. Whereas in America, we have an idea about like mobsters. John Dillinger was seen as a hero because he was fighting against the banks and against the sort of culture that we have. And I think that's all well and good. But like in 1960, if a bunch of guys, there's a reason that they lose the money because it's like kind of morality or it's kind of karma, right? They can't just get away with this money. But at the same time, they're also like, they're not violently like holding up a casino, but they're holding up a casino. They're stealing this money, and we're supposed to think that they're like cool and it's all cool and everything. So I wonder, like, why is it karmic that they don't? Why can't they get the money? Soderbergh fixes that in his film. They all get the money, right?
Yeah.
At the end of his movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it because they don't like? They're too callous about poor Tony having a heart attack in the street, or?
I don't know if it's like a super moral thing or if it was more like it's funny. It's just a funny ending, because it is funny. It is funny that they are callous. They're like, well, we're just going to use our dead friend now,
Yeah, they certainly have a utilitarian view of it, of their situation at the end.
I don't know. I don't know if they're supposed to be punished or not, by the ending, or if it's just like that isn't that a fun twist,
Well, have you ever seen It's a Mad, 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 Mad World?
No, I've never seen it.
That's a similar thing where it's like a race is on for, it's not even, it's like $350,000, I think, but nobody gets the money at the end because being greedy is bad.
It's like Rat Race.
Yeah.
Where they have to give it away at a Smash Mouth concert.
Yeah, it's exactly
that's
like
the reference I can get.
I think it's the crack about making slaves out of women. They get what they deserve.
Oh, so they're like, you think they're like, these guys aren't cool, like maybe they're like, they need to learn how to respect women. That's where it's coming down.
They're cool because. Yeah, they're cool because we know that they're supposed to be cool, and by we I mean, we are moviegoers in 1960. But they don't actually do like a ton of cool stuff. It's not like
the one guy he's like fighting, and they're like, "Oh, it's only two guys. He could take two guys."
Yeah. He's fighting because like his wife, who is an exotic dancer, is being hooted at her job, which is arguably her job, but she shouldn't be disrespected. So he takes the job because he's like, he's kind of like pre-cucked, I guess, if you want to look at it in modern terms. And like they don't ever like Frank Sinatra has a run in with his his ex-wife or his estranged wife. I think they're divorced. I can't really tell. But Angie Dickinson's barely in the movie, and he's just like, yeah, I don't really care about broads and dames. And then like Dean Martin has a fun run in with Shirley MacLaine, but she's just a cameo, and he doesn't really make any time with her. Like they don't do anything that like a cool guy in the '60s would do.
They sing, they smoke, and play pool, and they were all
they go bowling together to plan their job, but they're all just kind of like, all right, everybody, back to work.
Yeah, it comes. I think it's still like you said. It comes with like who they are, and then we've tacked on like they're all veterans, and they talk about some of the stuff they did, and so you just kind of take it. You just kind of take it at face value. I think like, oh, it's Frank Sinatra. He's a cool guy,
Yeah. There's a bit of an angle where Sam Martin's character, gets talked to by Angie Dickinson. He kind of tries to make Danny give it up and just quit the job, and then Danny's like, "No, I'm not going to quit," and then that like never comes back.
Yeah. There's some like weird loose threads or whatever, or it is just strange to be like, they're like, I don't know, they're these sort of guys, but they're also like these veteran sort of guys, like. I don't know. It is a little wacky. It's kind of all over the place, a little loose, but that's kind of what it is.
It's super loose, yeah. Danny's sort of squeeze, his paramour, ends up calling Angie Dickinson and trying to blackmail him, and she's like, "Yeah, no, I don't. You're trash. Don't call here again."
Right, and that's just because we know we already know.
We know he's a good guy, I guess.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's weird. Maybe the idea that who's Peter Lawford's character? Jimmy. Jimmy gets money from his mom, and he's sort of like a kept son. And then his mom is going to get married to this former criminal. Now I don't really know what he does. Played by Cesar Romero.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that kind of breaks it all open. So is it like Jimmy's fault because he's a mama's boy or something? I'm just trying to put the threads of this movie together. It's as random as craps, this movie.
I don't know if it's his fault, but I actually like that element because I didn't expect there to be like post-game content in the movie. I thought it was gonna be they do the heist and then this, and
that they walk away. Yeah, but no, there's the third act happens after that. Yeah,
the third act. Yeah, I thought the third act would be the end of the heist, but no, it's now Cesar Romero but he's now he's really involved in doing this, and I was like, I actually thought it was kind of cool. Like I just liked the thrust of the story. I sort of liked I like their early scene when he first sort of met him and they were talking. So I don't know. I thought that was like it was almost like a twist, even though it's like, it's an early heist. I guess just coming from what I expect out of a heist movie, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, they already like have like this weird twist in this heist movie. That's like not one of the first heist movies, but like a really early one compared to, the millions they've made now.
Yeah, I think I don't know the timeline on that one, but definitely like getting, a crew together and then everybody's got a thing and it's got to go off like clockwork and so on and so forth. Gosh, Steven Soderbergh really likes heist movies, doesn't he? He has made a ton of movies that, not just the Ocean's films,
Logan Lucky.
Yeah, Logan. This movie kind of reminds me of Logan Lucky in that there is a kind of truncated third act where somebody clever is kind of onto them. And, and now the thing becomes like, can we, outlast this person that's investigating us?
Yeah, I like that. Because I don't know, there's enough movies where it's like, we pulled off the heist, and it's like, okay, well, what else? I mean, I guess that is fine to do that too. That does work.
Go sing a song or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's slight is probably an adjective that would describe this movie. Long on style, kind of light on plot or even character, really.
Even the heist itself, I mean, compared to like movies now, I guess that's just the technology of the time, but like the heist isn't really even that complicated. You know, we're gonna knock out the power and like hold them hostage or what? Not hold them hostage, but hold them up and take their money. It's you know, I think in the episode we're gonna talk about, it's more similar to like what I expect out of them, where like everyone has a super specific job. You know what I mean? Whereas this, it's like you're kind of duplicating the same heist over and over because it's not that complicated, I guess.
Yes. And if this was, don't do it, but if you were going to remake this, I think that you would make it like 3 casinos instead of 5, and you would try to have them overlap a little more. One of the things that I enjoyed in the film was when they get to, you know, this all takes place on New Year's Eve, and when it gets to midnight, and we see that in one casino they're singing Auld Lang Syne, and we go to another one, and we see, you know, 5 different kind of setups. Mm-hmm. But the setups themselves don't differentiate really at all, other than the color of the balloons or the infrared. How many colors of infrared paint do they have?
Right,
but like the different colors of the paint. And the key that everybody's singing, wouldn't a house band just play Auld Lang Syne in the same key? But it doesn't matter. But having like, you know, some complication at one might relate to something at another, or like this casino is in a certain part of town that requires us to do this, and having, you know, the 3 different locations, or 5 in this case, mean something instead of just, well, this is how we fit 11 different stars into this. Like this could have, it's cool that it's 11, and of course we get the fun song EO11 by Sammy, but this could have been Ocean's 8, like the new female led one was more economical.
Sure. That is something I think McKenna pointed out when we were watching it together, that like the songs were like different tempos and different keys, and I thought that's kind of interesting. Like that would make for like a good hitch in their plan of like, oh, they're singing the song too slow.
Oh, this band's going too fast.
Or like, oh, they're not playing that song, you know? Like,
yeah. Yeah, I know this drummer. He plays too fast, so we got to add time to that. Have you ever seen Hudson Hawk?
You know, I have not. No.
I think I've brought it up on the show before for this specific reason. So, damn me for doing it before. Now's the time to bring it up. Hudson Hawk features Bruce Willis and Danny Aiello as gentlemen jewel thieves.
Yes,
and
yeah.
Probably, and of course, I think Bruce, you know, probably loved the Rat Pack, probably loved Ocean's 11. I think he thinks of that movie as kind of like his version of it. And in that film, they time their heists based on popular swing tunes. And so, like, if they're going to get a jewel, they go, okay, we got to climb up the fire escape. We got to knock out the guard, you know, run down the hall, do this. It's going to take us 4 minutes and 27 seconds. 4 minutes and 27 seconds. Swing it on a star. And then the heist becomes a sort of musical number that they do as they're like doing their things. They're like swinging on a star. They're like singing the song.
Oh, they operate much like the titular Baby Driver.
Oh my God.
Where he's got to jam out to do his driving.
I guess they do.
I guess it's not as timed, but
like the Baby Driver, don't they? Yeah, like the Baby Driver. And which probably owes a lot to this movie as well, Baby Driver. But so, you know, if I could go back in time, I would give that idea to the people who, you know, made this film, Louis Milestone, the director, and say, what if you had your actors sort of singing and doing a little number as they're doing their stuff? There's shades of that when they make the victims of the robbery sing Auld Lang Syne as well. Maybe that's them sort of saying like, no, we're not singing in this one. You sing. We're going to act in this one.
Oh, yeah, that's fun.
If they're like listening to the safe, or they're spraying the Freons in the lock or whatever, maybe they're singing the little song themselves.
Yeah, and that would like, well, maybe it is too, because they're like a handful of them all are kind of the same sort of guy. But I was thinking of like in you know, in the Deep Space Nine episode, for example, like we kind of know all these characters, similar to how we all, you know, everyone knows who Frank Sinatra is, and so it's like when they employ a sort of skill that you kind of already know they have, it's like kind of satisfying, you know.
Yeah. Or if they're doing something that anybody could do because it isn't written that particularly, you still like it because you're seeing a character that you like in a situation that they're not often in.
Yeah, like performing, like being performative. You know, it's really fun to see some of that over the top stuff where, yeah, like a lot of time in the original, it's just sort of like, it's just them being them.
You know, that's enough sometimes.
I mean, the movie worked for me in a lot of ways. Like, I had a good time watching it and stuff, but I could already tell before even I did rewatch the remake, but I could already like feel that like, oh yeah, they probably like, this is a lot more calculated and stuff like that. Like, it feels a lot tighter and stuff like that. But there is something I do sometimes just like like a hangout movie. I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, Henry Silva, of course, is in this, and he plays the guy who's kind of like the stringer. He like goes out and makes all the phone calls and gets everybody together, Roger. And it was funny to me because, you know, we saw him in Manchurian Candidate with very specific makeup and hairdressing, and he's supposed to be an Asian guy. And in this, he's just got hair like everybody else, and it's like, this guy's not Asian at all. He's just like an Italian guy. So I don't know what they're trying to get away with. At least I don't think they did like prosthetics or anything really terrible in Manchurian Candidate that I remember.
I don't think so. I think they were just like, this guy looks ethnic. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I think they pulled one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the most ethnic entertainers of the period, Sammy Davis Jr., of course, is in this film and is great in this film. And he had been in films before. As a very young man, he had been in some films. But this is like, I think he did. He was in like Porgy and Bess the year before. But this is kind of like his big film debut before going on to be in a couple more different films in the 60s, Rat Pack films. And he's great in this. You know, there's a kind of unfortunate scene near the end where they are putting on... And the problem with that scene where they're putting the stuff on their face is that you definitely would just cut that today.
Yeah.
At the time, I think you can make it work when they didn't make the distinction big enough that they're just trying to disguise themselves, right? They're commandos. They're going on a raid. You darken your face, you know, and you wear dark clothes so they can't see you. Like, that's what they're doing. It's the army, right? They're not trying to like convince people that they're all African-American trash men. But they're doing it, and then they get the comedy out of it because Sammy Davis Jr. is like, yeah, you guys look great. You know, he's like kind of laughing about them putting it on. Yeah. And they're like, how do you get this off? Civil Rights Act, I guess, is how you get it off. But they don't really do a lot with that. But it reminds me of the fact that I think they felt comfortable trying to do a joke like that because, you know, Dean and Frank were big supporters of Sammy Davis Jr., and you always hear the stories about how Frank wouldn't play a casino if Sammy couldn't play there too. And I don't know how that affected the clientele that the casino was trying to attract or who they'd allow to come in. But if a place wouldn't let Sammy play, Frank's like, forget it. I'm not playing there. And they were, at least in that way, supporters of, civil rights in Vegas.
Yeah. I guess that'll tie into the episode too. But I will say like that. Yeah, that scene, it sticks out obviously, but it was pretty interesting that like otherwise, Sammy Davis Jr., he was just like another one of the dudes in the movie, Yeah. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like they didn't really make much out of that. So that's kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's very telling that he's like the only character who has a job, as far as I can tell. Every other guy is just a white guy in a single-breasted suit that can smoke all day, but like Sammy actually has to have a job.
Yeah, what does he do?
But that job becomes super important because as the bag man, he's like, I'm the guy that's getting the money out of there, baby. Like that's how we're doing it. So
I thought
if anybody did anything else, maybe there would be more utility that they could draw on to get this.
Yeah,
heist
exactly. Like, what's their special skill? You know, well, the one guy's like an electrician, or he was, or something in the army. I don't know, but I thought with that scene, not to keep talking about it, but I thought they would do something with it, like a bit or something, like, which maybe would have been worse. But I'm thinking like, it's sort of accidental, but I sort of thought of. Speaking of George Clooney, like, "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" where they kind of get confused by the Klan because they have, like, the dark, like, stuff on their face or something. I thought they would do some kind of weird bit like that,
Right.
But instead it was just, like, I feel like they did it just to make that joke. And then it's like, okay.
Yeah, I think that you're right, because I think that was just an opportunity for them to do that joke, which is possibly questionable. I think it's fair to question the part in "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" but at least that is trying to make some kind of comment on racism in the South in the 30s.
This was more like I think
here's the litmus test. Would you laugh at a man unironically saying, "These boys done defiled a fiery cross"? Like, if you think that's funny, then we're okay.
Yeah, I think it's just like they're probably just like, oh, we're ribbing each other,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that's the way that they want to rib Sammy, because Sammy already made fun of his one eye early in the film, so they can't do anything with that.
Yeah. It was you made me think too, like the scene or the scenes in the beginning when Henry Silva is like going around and
he's just calling people. He's calling people on other people's phones.
So I mean, it didn't really matter, because like by the time. Like, once they got everyone together, I'm like, okay, this guy's this guy. And they did show the guy with the son and the doctor and stuff. But it was sort of like, okay, they're talking about guys, like, off screen, and I don't know who they're talking about. And then when they come into the movie, like, I think it's just sort of like, there's like a barrier over my eyes. I'm like, these are all like kind of the same guy. Was that
how am I going to tell these white guys with the left parts, apart? Yeah.
Whereas not to just bring up the remake, but like a lot of movies like that, when they introduce the character, it's obvious. It's usually with like a big scene of them doing something wacky or something like that sets them apart more. And so I actually rewatched the beginning later because it had been a minute since I watched it, and I was like, I want to remember some of the setup. And when I rewatched it, I was like, oh, I know exactly what they're talking about. So I think I don't know, it's one that maybe upon a rewatch, I was like settled into the groove of the movie a little bit more, which I don't know if is a good thing, but I certainly like it. It works for me.
They go really hard on the guy and his kid.
Yeah, it's so heavy.
and I don't know why. Like, he goes and visits his kid in military academy pre-K, and I don't know what it's supposed to like, other than just like Connie's like, well, I want like an arc for my character. I don't want it to show up in this film.
Yeah.
Because nothing ever comes out of it at the end, other than, again, just my scratching at the idea of a morality, that a problem this film has is that we have no idea what they stand to make. They keep saying it's a lot. And then when they leave his widow 10 grand at the end, I mean, 10 grand's a lot of money back then, but it's probably pales in comparison to what they stand to make. So again, are they kind of like shorting Tony and the only family that we've seen a character have in this, a wife and a child? I don't know.
Here's what I think. It's like, you got to think about it like wrestling a little bit, where it's like, you're going to lose, you're going to die in this movie. So you're taking the fall, you're getting pinned. But before you lose, we're going to put you over strong. So we're going to give you this emotional connection to the character, more so than anyone else gets in the movie. And so that's what you were saying. He was maybe he was like, I maybe want my character to do something other than die.
Yeah.
And so like, okay, well, like, we'll give you like a son that and because he does seem like in that scene, you do, like, I felt empathy for him. I was like, oh, he wants to make it right by his son, maybe that is like what you're saying. Like, that's the stakes of the heist too, at least for him. Who cares about what everyone else needs,
Yeah, there's got to be some kind of heart to it, or yeah, some kind of something that grounds it. Otherwise, it's literally just Frank Sinatra, and smoking and drinking tea, waiting for the phone to ring.
They should have just done that. It would have been fine. Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, no, but that's the thing. Like Richard Connie's like a real deal actor, so
Yeah.
yeah, I can see that. Robin and the Seven Hoods. There's probably no story there. Any last thoughts about this film? I would call it light, like sea breeze spritzer. It just goes right down.
Yeah. That's what I'd say too. It's probably not for everyone, but because even for me, it's like I'm already not. I'm actually, I would say I'm a fan of Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin stuff from the other movies we've watched and stuff.
Yeah,
but for anyone who doesn't really have that connection, I would say there's still like people who would probably be into it if you're interested in that era of film and stuff like that. But otherwise, it is like maybe a bunch of guys you don't know hanging out, so that might not appeal to everyone.
Yeah, watch your dad hang out with his friends for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Ocean's 11.
It's a thumbs up from me.
Yeah, sure, why not? All right, well, with that, let's take a break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more backtrekking.
Hello, I'm Mikan Hana.
And I'm Caliban.
I'm a huge Sailor Moon fan. I've been a Moonie since the beginning. I've seen every episode, every movie. I've read all the manga. I love it.
I've got a head full of bad wiring, and I've never seen a single episode.
Do you want to join the wonderful world of Sailor Moon?
Okay. Enter laughing. It's hard to believe that was us. It feels like ancient history.
We recorded that a few minutes ago.
Ancient history, but now that I'm a Sailor Moon expert.
You're not an expert?
But I'm trying.
Every week on Sailor Noob, we talk about a new episode of the original Sailor Moon series.
It's all new to me.
And I'm a little more seasoned. I've been a Japanese language student and I've lived in Japan.
And you use your experiences to talk about the food, fashion, and culture of every episode of Sailor Moon.
What do you do again?
Share in the wonder of a classic anime series.
Good enough. Sailor Noob is a great companion for first-time watchers, and it is a fun hit of nostalgia for the experienced fan.
You can catch the show every Friday wherever you get your podcasts.
And you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr, posting all things Sailor Moon.
One day I shall be the master.
Let's just get through this series first.
Okay. Okay, we're back. It's time to talk about the Trek side of this equation. When Deep Space Nine and its premise were originally announced, many fans were immediately skeptical. How could a show that boldly stayed in one place perform the kind of social commentary that we'd come to expect from the far-ranging adventures of Enterprise's past? Well, we all know how that turned out. Despite its stationary setting, Deep Space Nine became that Trek series that could seemingly pull off any kind of story, be it a piercing comment on modern social ills or a weightless genre pastiche. Emboldened by its history of success, in its 7th season, DS9 attempted both, by fielding an hour that not only provided escapist heist movie thrills in the world of Trek, but also examined our checkered history as a species and the ways that we reconcile with it. New shooter on the come out, it's Badda-Bing, Badda-Bang.
Starfleet, it's the Strip.
What is all this? Don't ask me.
But Vegas ain't what it used to be.
Vic Fontaine's hotel's just been bought by gangsters.
When the mob puts the make on the crew's favorite holosuite.
You, Vicky boy, are about to take a powder.
Now, one bad roll of the dice.
If we get rid of Frankie Eyes, everything we set's back to the way it was.
And their history.
We're running out of time.
On the next Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Badda-Bing, Badda-Bang came out a month after the premiere of The Sopranos. So as far as the whole Badda-Bing thing goes, like that was already around, you know? Like they didn't copy The Sopranos.
Right. Badda-Bing. Everyone knows that.
Bada-beep, bada-boop, bada-bip, bada-boom. Yeah.
I don't know where I first heard that phrase.
Yeah, probably The Godfather, yeah.
Right, okay.
This is definitely like... So, the first time I watched this episode was like, okay, you know, get back to the Dominion War. And then, like, I saw it again, and I was like, I don't like this episode, because now I'm mad that they would take the time to do this. before they get into the Dominion War. Because this is, I think
Oh.
there's this episode, then I think directly after this, although it was shot after the next one, is Inter Arma, that title we can never remember. And then right after that, it's literally the last 9 episodes are all serial, just a long run to the end. And I was like, why are they doing this? They got more important stuff to do. But like, as I've come to watch it more and more, I realize that it really is like the last chance for this cast to do something fun. It's the last chance for them to make a real world statement, about the kind of social problems that we are still experiencing today. The last 9-10 episodes will all be, aliens and revolutionaries and a morality play that has allegorical applications to our lives, but isn't a direct commentary in the way that DS9 has done so well. And it's that, and it's also just fun, and it's sort of setting up and embracing this whole weird world that they've created with Vic's Lounge on the show. And so I appreciate it a lot more now than I did when I first saw it.
Also, like, I just finished rewatching the show, and it feels like that a lot of the episodes, not a lot, but there's a handful of episodes in that last season leading up to the finale where it's sort of like a victory lap for each type of side thing we've done. So there's like one more mirror universe episode. There's one more, and so they do that. And then in the beginning of the final run too, they start, okay, now we're going to do one more Worf and Dax thing and one more Bashir and O'Brien thing. So I feel like it's them giving everybody their sort of send off, so that's what I really appreciated about it. Watching it this time was like, kind of what you said, their last chance to do like just a fun one, but also a very serious one.
Yeah. Ira Steven Bear has said that like it was his last chance he wanted to do a heist type episode, and he realized that he's like, we can burn 1 or 2 here in the 7th season. I've got a casino set. I've got an entire cast, who's all game. I've got this character of Vic. Like, this is it. We have to do it now.
It's too
I'll
fitting.
never get a chance. Yeah. Or the next show I'm on, I can just reuse the script, like the baseball episode.
He's the king of that for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, they pulled it like a heist. They pulled it off.
They did, and also just like in terms of it being a heist episode and a holodeck episode, one thing I really appreciated about it was it's not really a case of like the holodeck gone wrong, which is kind of fun. They were just like, because normally it's like they can't commit as much to it being X type of holodeck episode, because it's also, other than like, oh, we have to play this out or we'll all die or something. But this was like, no, we just have to play it out because it was made to be that way. And at this point, I guess like Vic would technically die, but it's sort of like, yeah, we don't want to lose Vic in like his memories. So we're just going to go on this casino heist. And if they fail, it's like, Vic still might be Vic, you know what I mean? But otherwise, like this, I like that the stakes weren't like, we're all going to get vaporized or something if we don't pull this off, Yeah.
It rewards the affection that they have for Vic in the story.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I also read that like Bear had kind of set it up as that as well. Like, there are some fans that liked Vic, and there's some fans that didn't like the time that they had invested in Vic. But in a kind of meta way, he was trying to position Vic as being in danger, from mobsters in this, but maybe, irate fans in the real world, and showing the cast of the show, rushing to save him because they did like him and they did care about him. It would be like, Gooey, if I pointed a gun at your PS4 and said, you better beat Margit the Fell Omen right now, or I put a bullet right through your PS4. And you're like, no, okay, I'll do it.
Right, but yeah, that's what I like about it. But it also stays fun in that element, because it's like I said, if they lose, like they don't necessarily have to like restart the Vic program. Like they could keep him alive. He just might like go to jail or something.
Yeah,
like they could still they could visit him in his hollow jail cell.
They don't want to lose their Vic save. They've got the perfect save.
Right, yeah. They've got all the right specs on Vic.
I think there's a show idea in Felix, the 24th century video game programmer.
I love this guy. Yeah, he's not as cool as Barkley, but
yeah, he's just the guy who's like making like games and then like putting little challenges in them that you don't know about, and now you have to do a move along home or something like that.
Right. Yeah, that's what I love. It's like it's not like someone was gonna try to kill you. It was just like, oh, he just thought this would be fun to do before we like realized we would really like Vic.
Maybe Felix's last name is Miyazaki, and he's a descendant of a From Software employee.
Well, then there would be more like poisonous swamps.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you pull the handle on the slot machine, and gas shoots out and kills you. Yeah. They are hanging out with Vic at the beginning of the show, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I'd get used to it after a while. Talking to characters on the holodeck that are then going to like, all right, well, I'm going to do this. But as somebody who has been a stage and a musical performer myself, like the division between the audience and the performer, specifically the roles of the audience and the performer are very important to me. And I guess if I was a hologram, I wouldn't care. But as an audience member, I'd feel really weird, like commanding what is essentially a sentient being, or at least appears to be one, to like, dance, monkey, like, hey, do this, sing this song for me. And he's like, okay, I'll sing it. Sure. And then he sings it, and it's like, this is kind of weird.
Oh, maybe there's another layer of commentary in there that we didn't even know.
Oh, I suppose.
He's like their hollow slave or something. I don't know.
But just that, like, it's always weird. I don't know if you, like, run into people, like, after you do a show or something like that. But, like, when I, get off stage and then come out, I know people are going to say I did a good job. And they're going to say it whether or not I did.
They're going to say, good set, dude.
I did. Yeah, I know objectively that you're wrong. I didn't do a good job. And there's certain things that people who aren't performers, like, there are certain sort of things that you don't know that you have to sort of like, you have to just accept it and be like, yeah, oh, thank you, yeah. So maybe, I don't know, maybe they'd get over that after a while. But like once they become closer to Vic, then suddenly maybe it feels weird to go, hey, Vic, sing Baby Shark, for the 300th time. Or like, hey, Vic, I'm going to jump up on stage and I'm going to sing. Like, how does Vic feel about that? Although Vic does get to show agency because they're like, all right, Vic, put the cap on. We're going to Davy Crockett. And Vic's like, nah, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. Maybe that's it. That's what it is. That is funny, though. I like to imagine you getting off stage and they're like, do the poor Yorick speech. And they give you a skull.
Right. Yeah. I'm not your little monkey. Come on. Forget that.
I think they probably set it up. He's just like, I take requests,
Sure. And Vic is just about the most affable guy in or out of a holodeck anywhere.
And you get like, I feel like in a lot of episodes he has agency, like with how he got Odo and Kira together, right? Like that was all. Yeah. He like parent trapped them basically.
Yeah, write it down. Yeah.
Oh shoot. Lindsay Lohan version.
Speaking of parents, no spot for Jake in this one, I guess. It kind of makes sense, but it would have been fun.
I didn't think about
try
that.
To squeeze Jake in somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, they got Cassidy in there. Like get the whole family. This
is too important. Jake's working on a story.
Well, yeah. They could have gotten everyone. Where's Garrick? Is he in there? No.
Oh yeah, that's right. Garrick's not in there either. But it's Cisco's 9 though, isn't it? There's 8 different people who are all involved.
Yeah, they should
9 different people.
They should have bumped it up to 11 for sure.
Yeah. Deep Space 11.
But they was this the one? Like, Quark's not gonna help. Like you're the competition.
No, this whole time, yeah. Of course, I believe that Armin Shimmerman has a ironclad contract that says he's in every episode.
Yeah.
So there's like one thing where he's like, what's going on in there? And it sort of pops the balloon of, because they have their amazing promenade walk where they come through and it's like, all right, this is the coolest these people have ever been. And they walk by and Quark's like, I don't know what this is. He's just the guy who's like, I don't know, these weirdos are doing something.
Yeah, is that promenade walk their version of the Reservoir Dogs shot?
Sure. Or the last shot of Ocean's 11.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. That, I guess, more so. Which, okay, sorry, that just reminds me. When they walk off in that last shot in Ocean's 11, aren't their names, like, on the marquee?
Oh, did it?
I think so. Yes. The final part was Sammy Davis Jr., it's got all their names on the billboard behind them, which cracks open the case of what we were discussing, if they exist in this world.
That's great. They must have been, is it a Monday or something? When are they doing this score? I guess they're just not performing.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, speaking of performing and singing, of course, Avery Brooks performs and sings in this. And
yes,
he does a great job. I don't know if he does a great enough job that everybody has to shit their pants every time they talk about it, which is like, maybe it's a thing where there's a lot of stories about, like, Avery Brooks is an intense guy, and there's a lot of stories about him not necessarily being the leader of the show, but not necessarily being, like, you know, everybody's buddy on the show. And he does have a musical background, and he sang and played for a long time. But every time people bring this up, it feels like the sense that I get is that it's like that guy who was kind of like quiet and didn't come out with everybody suddenly does something, and you're like, remember when that guy did that? That's like maybe like the one best story that they have for him.
Oh,
but I'm glad
okay.
I'm glad he did it though.
Just in terms of the singing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I've never heard any of these stories. And it doesn't really like shock me, just because he's in pretty much every other episode he's performing at such a, you know, crazy high. He's got this awesome energy through the whole show, and so that he's like basically has that same energy here when he's performing. You know, it doesn't. It's not like, wow, this is like, I can't believe he's doing this. But I will say he's got like a very distinct, like in the way that he acts, he has just such a like unique take on things, you know, and that is in his singing style too, and like his performing style. He's very like goofy but sincere and like deep, I guess. And I don't know, I liked it. I did like it a lot.
Yeah, I like the fact that once he is on board, he comes in and he's like, all right, here's what we do. Like, he's the guy that they needed. Like, he becomes the Danny Ocean to sort of lead this group to get this heist done.
That is like a nice twist on it, like where the leader has to be convinced into doing it. I don't think I've seen that as much.
Oh, like, we need somebody to lead this crew.
Yeah, usually
you're the guy.
Sometimes it'll maybe be like I think of like, sometimes it'll be like a group of people and they gotta like really convince one guy or something like that. But this was cool of like, he's the key, he's the X factor, we need him.
Right, yeah.
He's the captain.
Well, it's not going to be Worf, because at the beginning Worf's like, I don't know why you guys care about this. And he's like, I'm out.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. Like, Worf, I love Worf. He's my favorite, but it's so good that he's like, no, not involved.
It's interesting too, because, and we haven't been dancing around it, but I think it's time to talk about it. The racial commentary element of this episode is very important. It doesn't take over the entire episode, but it is a major sticking point early on. And it's always weird when you have an actor like Michael Dorn, who's playing an alien character who doesn't, you know, wouldn't have a connection to this, but then also has to kind of, you know, be in it. Like having Cassidy Yates and having Avery Sisko both be going into this scenario and both having different opinions as their characters about the sort of legacy of slavery and of civil rights, you know, in their own planets and respective history is fascinating. But like having like Michael Dorn as a black Klingon, like he doesn't really fit like into that picture.
Yeah, and maybe Jake would have complicated things too.
Oh, that's a good point. Well, I would hate to like, you know, limit our black actors just because of that.
No,
maybe that's what they were
like, by complicate, I mean like maybe in a good way. Like it could have added something more to.
Yeah, Jake could have been the guy that's like, Dad, you should do this. Like, this is important. Like, I think that you would enjoy this, and I understand the statement that you want to make, but that falls to Cassidy in this. I love how at first even Cassidy's somebody who, you know, is, you know, she sort of stands apart a little bit from the main cast, but they're having dinner and he's like, what's going on? She's like, oh, everybody's talking about this Vic thing. He's like, oh, I don't care about this Vic thing. Why is everybody talking about this? And then later it becomes, it becomes, well, it's interesting that like Sisko sort of reserves comment, and I think that he thinks that he's being noble. It's sort of like Sisko would never survive on the internet, because I think Sisko is he's personally offended by the idea of Vix, but he chooses at first to keep quiet because he understands he doesn't want to yuck other people's yum. He understands that it's like something they get something out of. But then she pushes him, and he talks about how like, look, it's a fantasy, but it's like a fantasy within a fantasy, because you go in there and there's like Asian people and there's black people and they're like that wouldn't happen in real life, and I don't want to be like a part of that thing. And that's a valid idea, that's a valid opinion to have about it. But then you've got Cassidy, who is, they're not Americans, but a black person, a black woman, who's like, yeah, but it's cool because we can do it. Like I think that's also a valid thing to have.
Yeah, both are valid. Like you mentioned the internet, it definitely does predate this whole like discussion on like, can we make like a fantasy movie, or not even fantasy, but like something like that you have characters who are like, at the time, like their race, would be discriminated or like wouldn't be included in this. And it does like play both sides of that argument before it even happens. And both are definitely valid. I think, like, they make a good case in the episode of like, yeah, if you want, you can do this for your own, for yourself, and like you can get something out of it. But there is totally a value to like, also like, I'm thinking of like media portrayals that do portray that stuff and show it for what it is,
Yeah.
So I like that it kind of hits on both,
Yeah. And I don't think that it says that any particular person or any particular viewpoint is the correct one. We talk about, we're both video game people. We talk about video games a lot on the show. That is a debate in video games. I think it's often a dumb debate, because if you've got like a medieval game and you find out that the developers are white supremacists, but hold on, we don't know that yet, and there aren't any people of color in the game, and then some players are like, how come? And other players are like, there wouldn't be. And it's like, first of all, there absolutely would be.
Yeah.
And second of all, it's a video game. You can do whatever you want. So why not do whatever you want? And that's kind of the argument that's sort of being had here. But it's a perfect place to have the argument, because they are specifically representing not only a time in which there were separate lounges and casinos for colored people, as they called them, because you couldn't do that. And they are paying homage to a set of entertainers who kind of made their mark by saying that it shouldn't be that way, and pushed for integration. So it's like the perfect forget the, fuck the medieval times video game. Like, it is the perfect kind of fulcrum of history where you can have this conversation about that. And I think it's really neat.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. One thing, this isn't really like a part of the argument in the episode, but I do think too, there is value of like, well, we will portray the time like this, but we will show like the racism that existed at the time. It is a facet of that time. And it's not just pure escapist fantasy. I see a place for that. I definitely, the white supremacist video game designers weren't trying to do that though. But like that's something that I always think is like not left out, but it's sort of like, I mean, maybe it's just like neither side is really like arguing for that sometimes. Not that all media should be that. Like, I think there's a value too in the like what you just said of like, oh, we're gonna do the fun thing for fun.
Yeah, and of course we're two people who have would lack the specific context to really talk about this. But
well, I would say like a good example of it is Far Beyond the Stars is an episode that does that.
Sure. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. This is maybe a loaded question, but like, I wonder what people in the 24th century think. Like, how long do you hold on to something and kind of remember something? If you are another 400 years away from the context of well, definitely slavery in the Americas. Cisco's from New Orleans. I don't know where Cassidy's from. How long do you sort of try to hold that up or try to make that a part of, your day-to-day thoughts on stuff? Are there Holocaust memorials on Earth in the 24th century?
Right.
Should the idea of a racist or a exclusionary casino be torn down like a statue of a Confederate general? Can you watch reruns of The Apprentice in the future?
The only thing that comes to my mind is that freaking Lincoln episode where he calls, he says to her and she's like, oh, yeah, that's kind of not even relevant to me anymore. Yeah.
Well, Roddenberry certainly thought so. But I think that we have sort of course corrected at least. The DS9's answer to that question is, no, we're thinking about that stuff. And here's why we're thinking about that stuff. Because the people watching the show are thinking about that stuff. And so as long as they're thinking about it, I think the show needs to think about it.
It's not hard to believe that, like...
Because I don't see color. I don't care. People could be whatever they could be purple. That's what I hear from like these fucking dumbass Star Trek fans.
What is this? It's like 300 years in the future? Or what'd you say?
At least. At least.
I mean, we still are affected now by things that happened 300 years ago.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like race and stuff like slavery and all that stuff. So, I mean, it's not hard to believe that 300 years from now, like there will still be things that we feel I don't know, it does make more sense the way it's portrayed in Deep Space Nine than in the original series. I think
I would hope that there wouldn't be minorities in the future, not because of quotas or anything like that, but like that the reason that we call them minorities is because we think of America as the world entire, and the people who aren't white or descended from like white settlers are less than the people that are, and so they're the minorities. But like in the future, with unlimited space and unlimited energy, anybody can be with anybody and prosper anywhere. And so when you look at, unfortunately on Star Trek, I think our leads tend to fit into the sort of white male persuasion, but anybody could be a lead of a Star Trek show. Anybody could be serving in a Starfleet ship, and that part of Roddenberry's dream, like I 100% agree with.
Yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, I guess that's too just like what happens with it's like different people writing and like the way the canon kind of changes over time. So you're like sometimes you're left with bits of evidence that are kind of contradictory, and you're like, I don't know the full story here of how like things are there. We go to Earth a little bit, but it seems pretty good. It seems like they've got it figured out.
Yeah. So that raises the question then, since we're talking about like entertainments in this future, is the racism generally edited out of historical programs in the holodeck? Like Felix, to program a thing this detailed, a program that captures all these perfect details of a 1960s casino, he must be something of like a 20th century expert, or at least he has access to that knowledge. But when he's putting a program together, does he fix that? If he, say, designed a program where you could watch the launch of the Saturn V rocket, at Cape Canaveral, are all the technicians and the people with the pocket protectors both men, women, different races? Do they color the past like Ted Turner?
I'm guessing they have both. Not that I see what would be why you would want to go into a holodeck for like the bad stuff. Why you just watch like a movie or something?
Right, but I could understand Cisco's viewpoint, and even somebody like Cassidy would be like, I don't really like care about your historical stuff because I don't see myself there. It's not the kind of thing that I'm looking for.
I'm imagining they have both something like Wolfenstein, where you're like just tearing, it's fun, I guess, and then you probably have like some version of like, I don't know, Schindler's List or something where it's miserable.
Oh my god!
But they both serve a different purpose. Maybe, I don't know.
You get to be the little girl in the red coat.
Well, I guess I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Like, what you probably wouldn't. It would probably just be like a museum or something. Holo museum. Yeah. I don't know. I don't like think. God. I don't want to think about this. What am I?
Well, it's the limitation that that we get because Star Trek is a show by an American corporation that wants everyone to watch it. And so there are certain things that we don't talk about or go into. And you're left thinking that the Federation as a society is a great place, maybe a little bland, but they've got all their needs met. But you could definitely have things like, no, give me the whole thing. Did you play Cyberpunk at all?
No, I didn't.
There's a mission in Cyberpunk where there's a guy, I'm not going to get into it because a lot of Cyberpunk's writing is kind of overwrought, but basically this guy is a murderer. He feels bad about being a murderer. And so he wants to be crucified like Christ.
Sweet.
And and he wants all of there's a technology that allows you to record all of somebody's experiences and their, what they're feeling. And he wants to have a recording of that happening to him so that other people can experience it. They can experience being crucified and understand what their savior went through. It's kind of similar. There's a thing in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. In their world, there's a character who is a Christ-like figure, and you can use this machine that lets you experience him experiencing these torments, and it's supposed to bring you closer in your devotion. And I could totally see having something like that in the Star Trek universe, a hologram program where you are, I guess it wouldn't be like, Jesus or or a religious figure, because I guess they don't care so much about that. But if you could be a little girl who is attending her first day of integrated school and having a white moms yell at you and throw rocks at you and experiencing what the kind of bravery that a person had to have to express their civil rights when that was not what society wanted them to do. I could see that happening. A little depressing for CBS All Access, but
well, yeah, it's because it's just hard to imagine because when I don't know, it makes me think of when Fortnite had the MLK thing,
Oh, okay. I'm where are we going? Okay, yeah.
But again, that's something put out by a large corporation trying to make an entertainment product, and not where I'm imagining the Federation as more. I don't know, it's not driven by profit or whatever, so.
Sure. Yeah. And it's not, it would be the complete opposite, because there could be 300, there could be 3,000 of those. If you've got we don't really know how the economy works, but let's say you could just take 6 months, learn how to program, see the holodeck like Tom Paris, and then create your own thing. There would be a bunch of that stuff. You know how when you're trying to get mods for a video game and you go on the mod site and you have no idea, you could get a mod that's awesome or a mod that's total crap, and the only way to know is if other users review it well. It would be kind of like that. This thing I'm describing, you are the little girl, attending a integrated school. There could be 300 versions of that, and there could be a really good one, or there could be a really bad one, or one where you have to shoot all the moms that are trying to stop you from going to school.
Right.
There's no limit to what you could get. Yeah, the MLK and Fortnite thing is weird. I guess I come down on the side of, I'm okay if a big corporation wants to say that, Martin Luther King's efforts were good, and that and that racial equality is important. I get that there is always cynicism tied to something that you're paying to do, but I don't have a huge problem with it. And if you think that people are going to be disrespectful, people can be disrespectful in real life on Martin Luther King Day. I can't stop them from doing that.
Yeah, but you also can't be well, I guess this could happen in real life, but they're also you can be Rick from Rick and Morty and floss on the MLK thing. I guess that's what you were just saying, though. I guess people can do that in real life if they want to,
as long as they stop short of having a James Earl Ray minigame in there.
Right.
That's probably okay.
I sort of think though with what I mean about it being done by this corporation, it's for profit or whatever, is it a lot of times at the bottom line it exists to reinforce the status quo, and maybe doesn't portray things exactly the way they should be, but I guess that would also come with a with a state imposed sort of one, like from Starfleet or whatever, I don't know.
Well, if I decide to make one of these programs about Martin Luther King and I decide to focus solely on his marital infidelities, or I decide to focus solely on his anti-capitalist rhetoric that, has been completely edited out of his history, then it's kind of like art. I'm trying to make a statement. And like, I do think that video games can be art, but Martin Luther King in Fortnite isn't art.
Yeah, right.
That's not a company trying to make a statement.
Yeah. Maybe they're just not the best people to be curating that, but it's also like not going to come from anywhere. Like no one else is going to make like a interactive Martin Luther King Day thing, Only the corporations with the money.
I think about the episode of Doctor Who where Doctor Who meets
we've talked about this on the show.
Meets Rosa Parks. Yeah, and how uncomfortable that made me. Even though clearly the message was, hero, like, right, good thing, right? But it's just like, it's one thing for her to like, to meet Mrs. O'Leary's cow, and it's something else for her to meet, Rosa Parks. It's like a little different.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Yeah. Well, that's what sci-fi is supposed to be for, though, and why Abraham Lincoln can call your communications officer a negress.
Yeah, it's a little weird, but here we are talking about it. Maybe we're getting something out of it. I don't know.
I hope so. There's a couple different actors in this who are all sort of classic mobster character actors.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Who are cool to see. We see Mark Lawrence as Mr. Zemo, who's like...
He's a million years old.
A million years old. Where were you in Miami? Yeah, but he, in his day, was in hundreds of movies playing heavies. Mike Starr, a guy that I think... Is Mike Starr still with us? I think so. You'll still see him around today. The big guy playing Tony Chichi, doing heavies and usually playing comedic sort of gangster roles. And then, of course, Robert Miano plays Frankie Eyes, the dastardly guy who's trying to buy Vic's casino.
Yeah, they're paying homage in all the right ways,
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
There's an unexpected guest star in this episode, and that is a man named Bobby Riley, better known as Robert O'Reilly, the actor who plays Gowron in the show.
Oh, was he? He was in there?
He is the replacement for Howard. When Howard is out with the flu, the new counter in the counter room is Robert O'Reilly.
Oh, I think I'd spot those eyes anywhere.
Yeah, but they're under the visor, aren't they?
Yeah, that's the only way they could pull it off.
He had said so they credited him as that, so you wouldn't immediately know it was him. And then he wanted to have like a joke name, which I guess you can do, like the guild lets you do. But he wanted to be like, see you later or something like that. But they told him like, okay, Bob, maybe you'll be on the show again. Like this doesn't have to be your farewell credit. Like he didn't know that he was going to come back and of course be killed by Worf. But he did, of course, appear on the show in future episodes.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's cool. That's a great cameo. I love that.
This episode does two things that I like, or it does something that I like in two ways. It has them do that thing where you explain the whole heist, and then often, in order to save time, you have a montage of them doing all the things that they're explaining that they're going to do. And it does that, but then they actually go off to do the entire heist. And maybe this is like some heuristic programming from Felix, but everything goes wrong. And things do not unfold the way that we already saw them unfold, and the crew has to sort of think on their feet.
Yeah, that's great. It is like a video game where it's like it's programmed to like counter them. Maybe.
So you've obtained the drink, but now we will make you spill the drink, and so you have to find another drink to give to the guy.
Yeah, it's not like Pac-Man where you like once you get past a certain stage, you can do the same movements and win every level. This is like it's
just
like
go forever.
Programmed to be it's trying to beat you.
Yeah, it's okay. You've achieved 5 out of 6 heist markers. So now we'll bump up the arrival of Mr. Zemo. It'll be today instead of tomorrow. and now you have to do something with Mr. Zemo.
That would be great.
I like that O'Brien is kind of the patsy in this because O'Brien must suffer. And in this case, he has to suffer the indignity of a strip search, which is made me think a lot about what goes on in the holodeck. Like when the holodeck strip searches you, this is a pastime that you have consented to, I suppose. So what is it? Do the rubber gloves come out? Like what happens exactly?
They're wearing real clothes, so.
Yeah. Kira has to sort of seduce or at least string along Frankie Eyes in the episode. So, like, how does the holodeck respond to being seduced? Or, for that matter, how does the holodeck do sexism? Because poor Esri has to wear her ridiculous costume, and every male character she comes up to is like,
well, that's
pretty good.
That's gotta be how it's like the guy programming it. It makes me think of Fistful of Datas, where they've got all those ladies, and Worf's like, I gotta talk to Barclay about this,
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's violating the terms of his parole by putting all these sexy ladies in here.
It's like gotta be like, okay, we're programming it. It's gonna be like the time. We're not gonna make it racist, but we will still definitely have it like, ogle some of the ladies. Like you just gotta that guy is probably thinking that,
In the same way that they've got like levels of violence that you can set on the holodeck, there must be like levels of uncomfortableness. Like this is, I'll set it to like 90s interpretation of a 60s setting, sexual harassment.
That's sort of like the movie where it's like, we'll hang out with Sammy Davis Jr., but we will talk about enslaving women, maybe. Like they have their own.
Give me the Ocean's 11, the 1960 version.
There's a dial that says racism, and they're turning that.
Ocean's 11 up to Quentin Tarantino film. No, it's too high. Any last thoughts about Badda-Bing, Badda-Bang before we move on?
Like I hinted at it about when I mentioned it in the movie, but I did like seeing everyone sort of have. I don't know if like Dax the cocktail waitress is like necessarily suits her skills, but like Bashir's got the, he does the thing for the drink. Nog's got the big ears for the save. Right. Odo can literally be the bag.
He's the bag man.
So I like that, like everyone sort of having their own special thing they do. I guess all the ladies are like, we're gonna be distracting by being ladies, but I guess that works on 1960s guys. I don't know.
It's too bad about Dax. I guess you could maybe get away with it by saying that, as a kind of junior member of the ensemble, she's gonna have a smaller role sort of anyway. Mm-hmm. But Dax is like, Dax has pulled off some heists in her time for sure. Right. She could run this whole thing.
It does make me like a little bit of the, I guess we sort of talked about it with how they feel about, like, some of the characters feel like, like Cassidy is like, the racism of that era, it's not there in this, and it doesn't bother me. I don't know, like the sexism really works with this, but it did sort of make me think of the Big Goodbye, where Beverly was like enjoyed being kind of like schmoozed on by the one guy,
Sure.
I guess Kira doesn't seem to like it, but it must feel like maybe it could be like, oh yeah, like I'm like tricking this old dumb guy from hundreds of years ago,
Yeah, or even just like a sort of parasocial enjoyment out of, being found attractive. Like, I'm not ruling that out. I think that would be valid.
It's more likely that the guys who made this show were like kind of horned up a little bit.
That's definitely what it was. Yeah, that's definitely what it was. It's 90s Star Trek. Yeah. Well, boy, there is a lot of technology involved here, from blowing up entire power line towers to casinos and their time locks, and of course the holodeck in the future. Technology is what makes Trek Trek. It sometimes facilitates what the characters do, sometimes it stands in their way. So on every show, we randomly pick from a list of Star Trek technologies, and we add what we get to the non-Trek media and subtract it from the Trek episode to see how each would be different. We call this our technological exchange. But I think I want to call an audible on this play, because most of the DS9 episode is set in a 60s environment. And you'll notice, I thought maybe they'd bring in like phasers or, use a tricorder to open the safe, but they don't do that.
They wrote it in that they couldn't.
Yeah, they are limited to using only that technology.
They're playing our game.
So maybe in this case, we should roll and add a technology to the settings of the 60s.
Oh, if they could like bring some... Oh, okay. Yeah. I like that.
So we'll roll twice on our list. Our list is phasers, holodecks, tricorders, transporters, warp drives, replicators, communicators, shields, advanced medical technology, and androids. And if we roll on our random number selecting device, come on, baby, come on, 7, 2, holodecks. Oh my God. I'm glad we decided. Huge bullet dodged. I'm glad we decided to do this. So for our first scenario, the scenario of Ocean's 11, if holodecks existed, what would it be different? How would it be different?
I have two thoughts. One is...
I have a couple.
One is you just get the episode where the movie takes place in a holodeck. Okay.
Yes.
2, you could do a thing like in the Soderbergh film where they trick them into thinking they're watching footage that they're not, but instead you could trick them into thinking they're in their casino when they're not. They're in a holodeck that's on a moving truck, and they're gonna, like, I don't know, crash it into a wall or something. Maybe you don't kill them, but
no, airbags manifest in the holodeck. Yeah. I think that's definitely what it is. That's what it is, so much so that we have to come up with something else, because that is clearly what you do.
Oh, shoot.
Actually, I can think of a couple different things here. Your scenario sounds like Insurrection, where they're going to put the Baku, on a ship that's going to replicate their whole village. There's also something from, believe it or not, Teen Titans Go to the Movies. I don't know if you've seen that movie or not.
I'm aware of it. I have not seen it.
But there's a segment where... I'm going to get this all wrong, but there's a character who has like a super secret vault, and there's no way to get in. And so they have to like trick the person. They build a vault just like the vault, and they bring him in to enter his code, and that'll help them get the code to go into the real vault, I think.
Okay.
So you could do a thing where, and there is no real like Andy Garcia character in this, but if we had an Andy Garcia character, yeah, you would like get him into a hollow space where he's going to input the access code to turn off the alarms or to look into the cameras, but really he's just giving them the code to unlock all the safes.
Okay, because
we got to top that thing. Though.
Yeah,
we got to top that.
Well, and then to a lesser extent, I sort of think like, how they also in the remake they build like the set to practice. Like I guess you could do that.
You would definitely do that. You would practice in a representation of the casino for sure.
But that's still like along the same lines. So what else? I mean,
you could. Again, this is just ripping off another movie, but like once you hand off the money, but by this time, this is something that I'm glad we did this, because we got to have an interesting discussion about the DS9 episode. But like talking about Ocean's 11 is what got us to that, as far as I'm concerned, because Ocean's 11 doesn't have like an antagonist until the third act. Like nobody's really like against them at all, which is kind of a problem. And I think Soderbergh fixed that by adding Andy Garcia to the mix. So I'm going to keep referring to this Andy Garcia character that's not in Ocean's 11.
All right.
But so at the end, he's got now he knows that Danny Ocean and his crew are in the casino, and they got to stop him. And it's a casino, so there's absolutely no way that you can get out. They've got 1 million guards. They can lock all the doors. They can got 1 million cameras. But then you could use holodeck technology to create
a hollow emitter.
Copies of yourself. So then you get kind of and again, it's just ripping off another movie, but you get a Thomas Crown Affair where there are like 100 Danny Ocean's, with 100 cases, and there's no way that they can stop them all.
Yeah. See, I just watched the movie Ambulance, and
Do tell.
and in this they're escaping in an ambulance,
Right.
but
Do they pull into a hospital parking lot?
no, they get a bunch of their friends to steal a bunch of ambulances. And
Okay,
then they drive under a bridge in the LA River, and then everyone comes out, and then it's
Sure.
like, oh, we don't know who to follow. Like,
Do they paint the same numbers? Because ambulances are famously numbered.
well, they do a really crappy paint job on their ambulance and paint it green, like neon green though, so it's still pretty noticeable. But
Weird.
to try and
Okay.
throw them off of like,
Okay.
okay, they're looking for a big white vehicle, not a big green vehicle. It's a little silly, as you would expect, but it's
Okay.
It's cool, and I think it's the same idea you're going for here, where you go into the bathroom and then 20 Brad Pitts come out of the bathroom.
Right. Yeah.
For some reason, we're fixing the adding stuff to the remake, but I just feel like it works better with Brad Pitt being duplicated.
That's one way to go. Here's another way to go. And this is terrible, but I think we've earned it because we have talked about the racial element. Sammy Davis Jr. can make himself look white, and he could do anything he wanted. He wouldn't have to be the garbage man. So he could lead the team. He could go in. He can make himself look like the casino manager character that doesn't exist in the film and be like, all right, baby. I mean, my worker, open up this vault. Sure. Are you sure? All the money's in there.
They could
I know what I'm doing.
They'd have like the Mission Impossible face technology.
Oh God, we've just created Mission Impossible.
Yeah, right. You could duplicate a lot of stuff. Like you could like the bags,
Yeah.
slot machines. I don't know.
Something I think I'm learning about Hollywood is that they did a pretty good job covering all the bases from then till now. Do you know what I mean? There are very few missed opportunities, I think, in entertainment. I think they've pretty much made a TV show or a movie out of just about everything.
You even think about with the movie and the remake, it's like, okay, we talked about how there's like a lot of sort of dangling threads or like different ways you could tighten certain things up, and then the remake, they're like, oh, let's just get in there and let's look under the hood and see what else we can do,
Yeah, what if we just kind of did a completely different thing?
So yeah, base is covered.
Yeah, yeah. Or even more uncomfortably, some of the Ocean's 11 crew have to make themselves look like African American trash men to help get the money out.
This would be awful.
And then they get a little perspective on the African Americans' plight in the 1960s.
They learn a hard lesson. Yeah. Wait, what if they create a fake holodeck casino that they fake rob? They do this in the movie Den of Thieves, where they
What?
Yeah, where they start to rob a bank, but it's only to get Gerard Butler and the cops to show up there so they can go rob the reserve or whatever. So that's what they could do. Fake casino, holodeck casino. They rob it. They call the the holodeck people. What?
How is it a fake bank? Does it have a fake alarm set up, or how do they?
Okay, I didn't think that much about it.
but is a cop driving by
in Den
and
of
goes,
Thieves.
"Oh my god!"
In Den of Thieves.
Yeah,
no.
Den of Thieves.
So they go to rob a real bank, but it's just a regular bank, and they get the cops to come, and it's a distraction while they really go rob the Federal Reserve or whatever. So they're robbing a real bank, but it's it's just to get all the cops to come there.
So
They don't really rob it. They just act like
it's
they're
a
robbing.
decoy robbing.
Yeah. So in
my
university, do that, but you'd have to have the fake casino set up for a long time to establish it as real.
Yeah, and if you can afford to establish a casino, you can just make money that way.
Well, true. We're kind of busting a lot open if you just have a holodeck technology. You probably can't make a whole building. That's probably too hard.
It'd be real sad to. We've done well at this business, but it's all got to go because we have to go rob this other business. So shut it all down. All right. Well, I think we covered that adequately. Let's turn to the 24th century and Vic's Lounge, or now Vic's Burlesque Club and Casino, and find out what technology we'll be applying to that situation. Come on, 7, 8. Shields. If shields exist in this universe, then what?
This could be like we can't bring in stuff, but we hack the program and we can bring in shields.
Yeah, or just, it is a 1960s where shields existed.
Oh, I see. So in the alternate history of Star Trek,
oh my God, that's another thing that would completely change it, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe yours is easier to swallow.
Or is it like shield? Is it like shields? Like just a big metal shield? Everyone's got big shields.
Everybody's just walking around with shields, like Captain America.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking in the interpretation of we're allowed to bring shields in. It's like, okay, now we're in like God mode because like we could have shields up on ourselves and like just go start throwing hands and their bullets will bounce off of us. Can shields block bullets?
It has to be the fictional technology, right? So yeah. They are like personal shields.
Okay. Because I was thinking, why hasn't anyone tried to shoot a gun at the Enterprise? If the Tommy gun aliens ever make it to space, the Enterprise is in a lot of trouble. They just, Mike Starr comes up. He's like, what do you think you're doing? And, he takes a swing at you and he breaks his hand on your shield. Oh, my hand. Yeah, it'd be cool if they just all had force fields. It wouldn't be a heist anymore. They'd just be like bouncing around.
Well, certainly a shield would protect the vault where the money is. And so that would complicate how the money is extracted from the vault.
Well, it'd be like instead of
shield guy.
They didn't have to knock out the power in the episode, though. But like
that's true.
For sure, you would do a similar thing, right? Like then O'Brien would have more of a job.
Sure.
Because he'd be the best person to bring the shields down.
He'd be crawling around in the ducts or backstage trying to bring the shields down.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
Instead of just guy who gets yelled at by other person in heist crew.
That's just kind of his, situation, basically. Like I was thinking they were giving everyone a last hurrah, I was mentioning. Like everyone gets a final go to do their own thing. But then I was realizing like O'Brien, it's the best thing in the whole show is his friendship with Bashir, but like his final go is just helping Julian do that mission in the one guy's in William Sadler's brain or whatever.
Right.
So it would be cool if he got like a thing, to do. But he kind of just gets beat up or like spit on.
Yeah.
Maybe there would be like a special VIP shield area, where you go and you're in a force field and people can't bug you.
I like it. Yeah, maybe some of the games are based on shields and shield technology.
Right. If shields existed in this era of Las Vegas, like they would have a way to gamble on them for sure.
Yeah. This casino's become like a den of blood sport where like you have a tiger, a white tiger come out and like, will this guy's shield hold while the tiger attacks him?
Could you do like you put two people in separate shield balls like hamster wheels and they gotta like fight it out?
American Gladiators type thing. Yeah.
I'm gonna write that. I'm gonna write the like a sci-fi book, but it's like only imagining what shields will be like in the next 20 years and like nothing
Absolutely
else.
Everything is shields. Yeah. Even projectile weapons are just like long shields that shoot out and hit people.
You know how they had like O'Brien's character, was he supposed to be like Isaac Asimov or whatever in Far Beyond the Stars?
I believe he was Asimov. He had the pipe, right?
Yeah, and he was like, I like robots. I'd be him, but like I love shields.
I love shields.
It's just only care about shield technology.
The 3 laws of shields. We all know them.
Shields would never hurt a person.
Or let someone get hurt.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, we did it.
We did it.
Mission accomplished. The job is done. and it's time to relax and look at the fountains outside the Bellagio. What are we talking about on the next episode of Backtrekking?
Yes, we've been doing so many classics. This is a classic. We're doing the TNG episode Elementary, My Dear Data, and its obvious connection to Sherlock Holmes. And I think we're going to be talking about the Final Problem story, because Moriarty.
It's the first appearance of Moriarty, isn't it? Yeah. So the classic foe of Sherlock Holmes that appears in, I think, like 2 stories tops.
But he's the classic foe.
Yes, but he is the eternal adversary towards Sherlock Holmes.
He's like Khan, he's not really in a lot, but...
Yeah, Khan's been in like 2 things. But if Nick Meyer has his way, he'll be in a lot more.
I don't know about
so we'll have to see about that. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's got legs, but we'll find out. And you'll find out how we feel about those things the next time that we return for the next episode of Backtrekking. But until then, if you like the show, tell a friend. And you can follow us at Backtrekking on Twitter. And tell us what you think that we should look at in future episodes. Gooey, tell the people where they can find you online.
You can find me on Twitter. I am at GooeyFame.
And I'm at K1IBAN on Twitter. And you can find all the shows on the Just Enough Trope Network at Just Enough Trope on Twitter. And that is it for us for this week. We'll be back soon. And until then, keep on trekking.